Characteristics of the psychic activity of man. Quote, first, work, and later, articulate speech, were the two most important stimuli under the effect of which the brain of the monkey gradually changed into a human brain. Work created the man himself. R. Engles. In his work Brain Reflexes, Sekhanov came close to the solution of the basic problem of the origin of psychics. He considered sensations connected with the activity of organs, vision, touch, hearing, smell, etc., as the cause of the origin of psychic activity. The psychic act, he stated, cannot appear in the consciousness without a preliminary external sensory excitation. The origin of thought follows the same rule. Psychic activity emerges as the result of the effect of the outside world on our sensory organs. The perceptions which accompany it are the only true source of the development of the mind, and together with it, the cognition of the reality which surrounds man. Quote, to separate the mind from the organs of sensation means to detach a phenomenon from its source, sequel from cause. The world really exists besides the man and lives its independent existence, but man cannot perceive it without his organs of sensation because the products of activity of the sensory organs represent the source of his entire psychic life, wrote Sekhanov. Having determined the basic question of the sources of psychic activity, Sekhanov did not stop there and continued the further development of his materialistic teachings. We must mention in connection with this that there were many among the idealistic philosophers too who recognized the sensations and perceptions of man as the basis of his psychic activity. They, however, considered these perceptions as inherent in the inner world of man and did not relate their origin to the effect of the outside world. If some of them did admit the effect of the environment, they thought that there was no direct connection and precise relationship between the environmental influences and the origin of perceptions. Feuerbach named this trend in philosophy and physiology physiological idealism. Its founder was the noted German physiologist of the 19th century, I. Müller. In view of the particular importance of this problem, we shall analyze it in more detail. The most important problem to understanding of the unity of the organism and its environment is the one which concerns the qualitative significance of the environmental factors which influence the organism, the stimuli as they are called in physiology. This later clarified theme has profound philosophical significance. If it is not taken into account, we shall be unable to correctly evaluate the materialistic essence of Pavlov's teaching of the organism and its relation to the environment and to the psychic activity originating in connection with it. The pre-Pavlov physiology, based on mechanistic and idealistic positions, ignored the entire problem of the quality of stimuli and of the reactions as a whole. This was due to the fact that the mechanistic theory rejects in principle the category of quality and operates solely on the basis of quantitative ideas and definitions. The non-scientific character of these views is obvious, for they create an anti-historical, anti-evolutional approach to a given phenomenon and deny the possibility of true development and reduce complex problems to simple ones. In this respect, it is instructive to recall the juxtaposition of the two theories of development, the mechanistic and the dialectic theories, which was made by V.I. Lenin and which demonstrated the insipid and lifeless character of the mechanistic theory. In physiology, the mechanistic negation of the category of quality manifested itself in the so-called law of specific energy. In substance, it reduced to this: a reaction, allegedly independent of the quality and the character of the external stimulus, will originate in an organ of sensation when it is related to the specific energy inherent in that organ. A blow in the eye, a ray of light, or a surgical operation of the optic nerve will always cause only a visual sensation. Proceeding from correctly described facts, I. Mueller, the author of this law, arrived, however, at a profoundly reactionary idealistic conclusion that the substance of which is the admission of the complete separation between the organism and the external medium. The role of the external stimulus is reduced to that of a cock in the rifle, to the role of an actuating mechanism. It is of no importance how and what force is applied to press the cock. The rifle will shoot with the same force, and the nature of that shot will depend on how much gunpowder there is in the charge, what kind of shell it is, etc. As far as the organism is concerned, it means that the various reactions of organs are arranged in advance, and that the external influences only actuate these specific reactions. Thus, there remains an unfilled gap between the organism and the environment. This notion of the relationship between the organism and the environment, of course, eliminates the confidence which the materialist possesses in the ability of a sure and complete cognition of the world around us. The odor and the color of the rose exists only as our perception and is originating in our nerves, and the problem of their existence independently of us, thus, remains unsolved. It is not surprising that Helmholtz, a follower of Mueller, began to express openly his disbelief in the possibility of the cognition of the world by means of the organs of sensation, and to discuss signs and symbols of the outside world, which are, allegedly, the only ones we are capable of perceiving. V.I. Lenin, the creator of the materialistic theory of the correct and complete reflection in our brain of the perceptions of qualitative diverse stimuli from the external world, subjected the law of specific energy to well-deserved criticism as an attempt to establish a basis for idealism in physiology. Lenin emphasized the point that physiological idealism means only that a school of naturalists in one field of natural science tumble down to reactionary philosophy, unable to ascend directly and at once from metaphysical materialism to the dialectic materialism. The idealism of this physiologist, indicated V.I. Lenin, consisted of the fact that, in studying our relation between perceptions and the activity of the organs of sensations, he was inclined to deny that our perceptions are the images of objective reality. I. M. Sekhanov took a very different position in regard to this problem. He stated that the similarities and differences which men find in sensations originating from diverse objects reflect the true similarities and differences of these objects. He thought that the properties of the sensations of light, sound, etc., like the color of various objects, the height of musical tones, etc., fully depend on the actual excitation characteristics which originate in our organs of sensation under the effect of the stimuli. Pavlov insisted upon the introduction of the idea of the role and significance of the quality of stimulus and reactions. Starting with initial work on the physiology of blood circulation and, later, in the study of digestion, and particularly during the period of investigation of the physiology of the higher nervous activity, he turned indefiably again and again to the qualitative characteristics of the stimuli. In this respect, the persistent quest of Pavlov for the most precise materialistic approach is highly significant. At first, following centuries-old traditions, he searched for the explanation of the observed objective phenomena in their quality of salivation in its dependence on pleasure sensations and on the psychic states of the animal. However, having soon become convinced of the sterility of this approach, he turned determinately to the path of the objective physiological interpretation of all animal reactions. This was not accidental. Of course, on the contrary, in the case of Pavlov, it was organically bound with his ideas of the unity of the organism and with its environment, or within its environment. Pavlov subordinated this problem in its entirety to experimental analysis, but its most important component part remained the question: how is the higher nervous activity of animals and man formed under the effect of various qualitatively different external stimuli? At first, Pavlov carried out the study of higher nervous activity in animals only. However, his constant task in these experiments was the aim of finding ways to explain the processes of physiological activity in man. Accordingly, at the first opportunity, he included in the circle of his studies the direct observations of the higher nervous activity in man, which he carried out in the psychiatric clinic. Pavlov's observations of higher nervous activity in man brought forward the question of the analogy and differences in the psychics of animals and man. In approaching it from a straight methodological position, Pavlov was able to find the right path in the study of this most difficult problem. Taking into account that the environment is the main prerequisite which determines the character of the reactions of an animal, Pavlov arrived at the following conclusion: the natural, biological, or, as Pavlov called it, the general natural, medium is common to both animal and man. At the same time, man believes under direct influence of a social and public medium which is inherent to him only and which is largely absent in the animal kingdom. These circumstances must serve as the key, Pavlov thought, to determine the similarity and differences of higher nervous activity in animals and man. The biological medium influences the eyes of the animal and man with light stimulus, the organ of hearing with a sound stimulus, their skin with heat or cold. Parallel with these external body stimuli, we can think of the diverse effects which the body and its organs have on the natural nervous system. Muscular sense, the sensation of hunger and thirst, satiety, pain sensation, etc., all originate in the internal organs and are examples which prove the possibility of the stimulating effect of the organs of the body. Any one of these actions may acquire the character of a conditioned stimulus, as has been indicated above. All conditioned reflexes which are formed after a direct effect on the eye, ear, skin, and other organs of sensation, Pavlov designated as the activity of the first signal system. This system is, to a certain extent, common to animals and man, especially in the early period of maturity of man. To the animal, Pavlov wrote, reality is signalized almost exclusively by means of stimulations and their traces in the large cerebral hemispheres, which penetrate directly to special cells of the visual, audio, and other receptors of the organism. These signals are the same which we receive via our receptors as impressions, perceptions, and images from external environment, the general natural, as well as the social, with the exception of the word, heard, or read. This is our first signal system of reality, common to us and animals. Pavlov emphasized that the social and public environment is specific to man and differentiates him from animal. In accordance with the ideas of Engles, Pavlov concluded that work, created by social customs, represented a new characteristic in the formation of the human society. Work created man, said Engles. In the practice of work contact, primitive people felt the need of saying something to each other. The articulate speech appeared. A tongue was formed. A foundation was created for the development of thinking. In underlining this characteristic element in the evolution of the higher nervous system of man, Pavlov used to say that man is a talking creature. Word as a conditioned stimulus, speech as a conditioned reflex activity, and the innumerable quantities of conditioned reflexes taking place on this basis specifically, according to Pavlov, the second signal system. Having acquired in the course of evolution the second signal system, man mastered also the higher qualities of thinking connected with the faculty of abstraction and generalization. Animals, especially the higher ones, dog, monkey, also possess intelligence of which we shall speak later. However, the thinking function of an animal is limited within the range of the first signal system. It means that it consists of concrete image-like, or as some say, sensory thinking. One can speak of an idea of the image of a sparrow, chicken, or goose in the mind of a monkey, but the monkey is totally incapable of a generalized conception of a bird. Thinking in ideas requires a generalized abstract approach. It can only emerge on the basis of speech. In the idealistic teachings about the soul, the problems connected with the origin of speech and its relationship to thought always occupied a very important place. It is not by chance that these same problems attracted the most vivid attention of the servants of the Church. In contrast to the Marxist materialist teaching of the origin of speech as a social phenomenon conditioned by work practice, religion feels that the gift of tongue has been granted us through divine intervention. The idealistic notions regarding the soul and speech concur in substance. For one of the most important signs of spirituality, i.e., the presence of the soul, is speech. Animals are speechless creatures, for, not having received a soul from God, they have not obtained the gift of speech either, the clerics would say. The teaching of the first and second signal systems of conditioned reflex activity and of the close connection and interpretation relationship between the two systems indicates instances of transformation of thinking in concrete images into thinking in ideas and abstractions. The data of the natural science obtained by the Pavlov school thus corroborate the ideas of V.I. Lenin, who had pointed out the gradualness of the development of the process of consciousness. Lenin wrote, quote, "From a live observation to abstract thinking, and from there to practice. This is the dialectic path of knowledge of truth and of knowledge of objective reality." The philosophical teachings of the classicists of Marxism and the physiological studies of Pavlov destroyed the religious and idealistic ideas of the divine origin of human consciousness. The problem of the development of psychics in connection with the development of the entire live world was posed in Russian science a long time ago. N.G. Chernyshevsky pointed out the fact of her historical relationship between the psychic phenomena in the animal world and the phenomena of consciousness in man. He underlined the fact that, if this historical succession of phenomena is disrupted, the consciousness of man may appear to us as a sort of miracle, something isolated, just the way it is imagined by the idealists. Later, I. M. Sekhanov advanced the task of study of the historical development of psychic processes in the frame of evolution of the entire animal world. Of the utmost importance in the fight against idealistic ideas is the materialistic teaching of the causal dependence of the origin of speech and tongues on the work practice in human communities, as well as the discovery by Pavlov in the physiological and material process which are at the base of speech. The origin and development of mental faculties from the lowest level to the highest forms of thinking. All this have now become open to scientific, materialistic investigation. The idealistic teaching of the soul has been, till recently, the most inaccessible fortress of idealism and religion. The Marxist philosophy and the materialistic science destroyed this fortress and scattered the biblical myth of the soul without leaving a trace. One of the greatest achievements of Marxist philosophy is the development by Lenin of the theory of cognition, which has been named the reflection theory. The material processes of the outside world, which exists independently of us, are reflected in our brain. We must emphasize the fact that Pavlov's teaching of conditioned reflexes in animals and the two-signal system of the human brain represent the corroboration by natural science of Lenin's theory of reflection. The cerebral cortex ensures man's faculty, as Pavlov taught, to reflect correctly and precisely the objective reality which surrounds us.